it's time to consider the impact of video game brainwashing on the masses who partake. And what better place to start than the mega hit Cyberpunk 2077, not the buggy launch, not the redemption arc, but what this game is actually teaching. Because Cyberpunk 2077 isn't just a dystopian RPG about a mercenary trying to survive in a corporate hellscape. It's a systematic initiation into Luciferian rebellion, transhumanist ascension, and the occult principle that you can become your own god through technology and willpower. The game teaches that corporations are the new gods, keeping humanity enslaved, that the body is just meat to be upgraded and transcended. That rebellion against all authority, especially traditional moral structures, is not only justified, but necessary for enlightenment, and that death itself can be conquered if you're willing to merge with machines and digital consciousness. This is Prometheanism wrapped in neon and chrome. It's the oldest lie from the garden, you shall be as gods, repackaged for gamers who grew up without any biblical framework to recognize what they're absorbing. Let's get frank. If you want to understand the propaganda, symbols, and hidden messaging in all the biggest Hollywood box office hits, subscribe right now, click like, and hit the notification bell to make sure you never miss a video. Cyberpunk 2077 opens in Night City, a sprawling metropolis on the California coast in the year 2077. It's a city of extreme wealth inequality, corporate tyranny, rampant crime, and technological augmentation as the norm. The rich live in penthouses above the clouds, the poor scavenge in the streets. And everyone is plugged into the system, modified with cybernetics, branded by their corporate masters. This is Babylon. Night City is explicitly designed as the ultimate expression of corporate capitalism run amok, where megacorporations have replaced governments, where human life is commodified, and where your worth is measured by your chrome and your credit balance. This is a picture of the biblical harlot Babylon, where the great merchants of the earth, the generationally wealthy elites, it seems at this point, rule over the kings or leaders of the nations. The corporations don't just influence government, they are the government. They've displaced national sovereignty entirely. The game presents this as dystopian, which it absolutely is. But here's what's insidious. It simultaneously makes it desirable. Night City is gorgeous. The neon lights, the architecture, the fashion, the music, the raw energy, it's intoxicating. You're supposed to be horrified by the inequality, but you're also supposed to want to be there, to climb the ladder, to become a legend in this city of dreams and nightmares. This is how propaganda works. Show the corruption, but make it seductive. Condemn the system, but make success within it the goal. The game is training you to accept this technocratic hellhole of a future as inevitable, even exciting. There are multiple megacorps in Cyberpunk's world, but the primary antagonist is Arasaka, a Japanese zaibatsu that dominates global security, manufacturing, and banking. Arasaka is presented as the ultimate evil. They experiment on people, they control governments, they treat human beings as expendable resources, they represent corporate colonialism at its worst. But notice what Arasaka actually is in this Gnostic framework: the Demiurge, the false god. The Gnostics' representation, the biblical god, as an ignorant creator who imprisons souls in the material realm and claims supreme authority while being merely a middle manager in the cosmic hierarchy. Arasaka didn't create humanity, but they control it. They didn't create Night City, but they own it. They're the archons, the rulers of this dark world. And who opposes them? Johnny Silverhand. Johnny Silverhand, played by Keanu Reeves in familiar Gnostic territory, is the deuteragonist of Cyberpunk 2077. He's a rocker boy, a musician who used his art as a weapon against corporate oppression. He fronted the band Samurai, preaching rebellion, inspiring uprising, calling people to fight against the system. In 2023, Johnny led an assault on Arasaka Tower and detonated a nuclear bomb, killing thousands, including himself. His consciousness was then digitized by Arasaka and stored on a chip called the Relic. 50 years later, that chip is stolen and accidentally implanted in the protagonist V's brain. Johnny's digital ghost begins overriding V's consciousness, slowly taking over their body. And from that moment, You spend the entire game with Johnny's voice in your head, constantly pushing you toward rebellion, toward rage, toward destruction of the corporate order. Johnny Silverhand is Lucifer. This is not subtle. His very name is Silverhand, Silver Tongue, the deceiver, the one who speaks beautiful lies. He's a fallen angel, a beautiful rebel cast down and transformed into something else. He challenged the ruling power Arasaka and was destroyed for it, but he didn't stay dead. He returned as a digital ghost, an entity between life and death, whispering in your ear, promising freedom through rebellion. And the game makes him magnetic. Keanu Reeves brings charisma, vulnerability, humor, and righteous anger to the role. You're supposed to like Johnny. You're supposed to sympathize with his cause. You're supposed to see Arasaka as evil and Johnny as the revolutionary hero fighting for humanity's freedom. But let's examine what Johnny actually believes. He says Core have transformed Night City into a machine fueled by crushed spirits and broken dreams. He declares war not because capitalism is wrong, but because the system has spiraled out of control. He wants to give power back to the people. He's anti-authority, anti-corporate, anti-establishment. He's pure Luciferian rebellion, the beautiful revolutionary who promises liberation from the oppressive creator God. He's Karl Marx, except for the beautiful part. Socialism always ends well for those proletariat masses, doesn't it? And crucially, Johnny admits he lacks empathy. If he needs to kill to prove his point, he'll do it without hesitation. He's willing to nuke a building full of people, workers, security guards, janitors, civilians to strike at Arasaka. He justifies terrorism as necessary. Collateral damage doesn't matter. The ends justify the means. This is socialist, progressive, woke, Luciferian morality. Might makes right. The strong devour the weak, and anyone who stands in the way of the revolution deserves to burn. The game even reveals that Johnny's memories are unreliable. His digital ghost has rewritten history, erased inconvenient truths, and mythologized himself. He's literally a lying spirit, a false angel of light, promising freedom while leading you toward destruction. But here's the propaganda. The game knows Johnny is flawed, admits he's a terrorist, shows his narcissism and violence, and then says, but he's still right. The corporations are evil. The system does need to burn. Johnny's methods are extreme, but his cause is just. The game is teaching you that Luciferian rebellion is not only justified, but also heroic. And if we can only genocide the right people this time, we'll finally have an Edenic utopia made by man, no God required. The cyber in Cyberpunk isn't just aesthetic, it's the entire philosophical foundation. In Cyberpunk 2077, everyone is modified. Cybernetic implants are not optional, they're necessary to survive. Whether you're a corpo working a desk job or an edge runner doing illegal gigs, you need chrome. You need enhanced reflexes, optical implants, subdermal armor, neural interfaces. The unmodified human is obsolete. This is predictive programming, normalizing the real-life core philosophy of transhumanism being pushed on us, namely, that humanity must transcend its biological limitations through technology, that the body is just meat to be upgraded, that consciousness can be transferred, stored, manipulated, and even uploaded, that death is a problem to be solved, not a reality to be accepted. And Cyberpunk 2077 presents this as inevitable. You can't play the game without installing cyberware. You can't compete without Chrome. The game mechanically forces you to participate in transhumanist enhancement. It's baked into the progression system. You're not exploring whether this is ethical, you're just choosing which upgrades to buy. The most extreme example is Adam Smasher, the game's final boss. Smasher is 96% cybernetic, he's barely human anymore. His entire body was replaced after taking an RPG blast to the chest, and Arasaka rebuilt him as a walking weapon. He's stronger, faster, deadlier than any baseline human. He is the logical endpoint of transhumanism, the human who transcended humanity and became a monster. The name Adam Smasher is fascinating. Adam, the first man, God's imager and priest. But this Adam is a smasher, a destroyer, an archon serving the demiurge. And what does he smash? Human limitations, flesh, mortality itself. But there's another layer here. Atom Smasher as a reference to Atom Smasher, the particle accelerator, CERN's Large Hadron Collider. We talked about CERN in the Stranger Things analysis, how these facilities are literally trying to pierce the veil between dimensions, smashing particles at near light speed to recreate Big Bang conditions and search for evidence of extra dimensions. They even have a giant statue of the Hindu god Shiva, the destroyer, outside their headquarters. Totally normal, science says kind of stuff, I'm sure. Atom Smasher is that principle incarnate occult practices dressed up as science, then dressed up again as cybernetic enhancement. He's the collision of matter and technology, the smashing together of human and machine to create something that transcends both. He's CERN on legs, a walking particle accelerator designed to break through barriers that God established. The name is no accident. Atom was made from dust. This atom is made from chrome and circuits. One was created by God. The other is a mockery, was created by the corporate demiurge, Arasaka. But here's the thing. The game wants you to see Smasher as evil, not because he's transhuman, but because he works for Arasaka. The problem isn't that he replaced 96% of his body with machines. The problem is that he sold his soul to the corporation that paid for the upgrades. He's a slave, despite his power. This is the game's critique. Transhumanism isn't wrong, but it can be exploited. Technology isn't evil, but it can be weaponized by those in power. The issue isn't augmentation, it's who controls the augmentation. If you're upgrading yourself for autonomy and rebellion, you're a hero. If you're doing it for corporate masters, you're a slave. This is incredibly seductive philosophy. It tells you that technology can make you godlike, that you can overcome death and weakness and limitation. You just have to do it on your terms, not the system's terms. It's Prometheanism. Steal the fire from the gods, but don't let the gods control you. But from a biblical perspective, this is the same lie. Whether you're augmenting yourself for Arasaka or for personal freedom, you're still playing God. You're still rejecting the body God gave you, still treating flesh as something to be overcome, still pursuing immortality through human means rather than submission to Christ. The game never questions whether humans should become transhuman. It only questions who controls the transhumanism. And that's propaganda. It's normalizing the idea that the body is inadequate, that technology is the path to transcendence, and that death is the enemy to be conquered rather than the gateway to judgment. The central MacGuffin of Cyberpunk 2077 is the Relic, a biochip designed by Arasaka to digitize human consciousness and implant it into a new body, effectively granting immortality to the ultra-wealthy. The chip contains Johnny Silverhand's engram, his digitized consciousness, and when it's implanted in V's brain, it begins overriding V's neural pathways, slowly killing them while resurrecting Johnny. This is demonic possession dressed up as technology. V is being inhabited by a foreign consciousness. Their personality is being erased. Their body is being taken over. And they can't remove the chip because it's fused to their brainstem, pull it out, and they die instantly. They're trapped, hosting an entity that speaks to them, influences them, and gradually consumes them. The game frames this as a medical crisis, a technological glitch, but functionally, it's spiritual warfare. V is being possessed by the digital ghost of a dead terrorist, and no amount of scientific language changes what's actually happening. One consciousness is consuming another. And here's where the game gets deeply occult. The solution isn't exorcism. It's not casting out the demon in Jesus' name. It's not spiritual authority. Instead, the game offers you multiple endings, all of which involve either accepting possession, transferring consciousness to another body, or allowing Johnny to take over completely. There is no V stays fully V ending. In every scenario, something is lost. In some endings, V lives, but with months left to live. In others, Johnny takes over V's body and V becomes the ghost. In the Arasaka ending called The Devil, in the tarot symbolism, V sells out to the corporation that created the relic in exchange for a chance at life, but they're turned into a corporate asset, their soul harvested and stored in Mikoshi, Arasaka's digital prison for consciousness. The game is teaching digital dualism, the idea that consciousness is just information, that it can be separated from the body, stored, transferred, and manipulated. This is fundamentally anti-biblical. It's also the spiritual lie behind transgenderism. Scripture teaches that humans are body-soul unities, that you are not a ghost piloting meat, but an integrated being made in God's image. Death is not a data storage problem. Resurrection is not uploading, and consciousness cannot be copied like software. But Cyberpunk 2077 treats the soul as code. Johnny is literally a program. His memories, personality, and will are stored as data on a chip. And because he's just data, he can be transferred, rewritten, deleted. The self is reduced to information, and information can be manipulated by whoever controls the technology. This is transhumanist eschatology. This is the promise of digital immortality. If consciousness is just information, then death is just a hardware failure. Solve the hardware problem, and you solve death. You don't need God, you don't need Christ, you just need better technology. And millions of players absorbed this worldview while playing a fun open-world RPG about a cool mercenary in a neon-lit city. Here's where Cyberpunk 2077 gets explicitly occult: the tarot cards. Throughout Night City, there are 22 tarot graffiti murals that only V and Johnny can see, glitching digital paintings of the major arcana. Collecting them is part of a side quest given by Misty, Jackie's girlfriend, who runs an esoteric shop called Misty's Esoterica. Misty is a practitioner of divination. She reads tarot, burns sage, talks about energy and vibrations and destiny. She's a New Age spiritualist, and the game presents her as wise, intuitive, and good-hearted. She's the moral center of V's circle of friends, and she uses tarot to predict the future, to guide decisions, to reveal hidden truths. This is divination. This is forbidden in Scripture, but none of this will offend the predominantly atheistic audience of this game. The biblical scriptures that forbid it will offend them, though. Why? Because atheism is just a subcategory of self-empowerment paganism like Wicca and other assorted occult practices. Having this spirituality, quote, rammed down your throat, unquote, is perfectly acceptable, just not the biblical kind. But Deuteronomy 18 explicitly condemns consulting diviners, fortune tellers, and those who interpret omens. Why? Because when you seek guidance from spiritual practices outside God's revelation, you're opening yourself to demonic deception. The spirits that respond to divination are not neutral forces, they're lying, unclean spirits seeking to lead you away from truth. But Cyberpunk 2077 frames tarot as helpful, insightful, even prophetic. Misty's readings foreshadow the game's events accurately. The tarot cards correspond to characters and plot points. Johnny is the magician, V is the fool on a journey. The endings are represented by the devil, judgment, the star, the sun, and temperance. The game is structured around the fool's journey, a tarot concept where the protagonist moves through the major arcana, each card representing a stage of spiritual development. This is occult initiation disguised as storytelling. The player is being walked through a tarot reading in game form. You're not just watching V's journey, you're participating in a divination ritual, learning to interpret the cards, accepting their framework as valid. And the symbolism is blatant. The Wheel of Fortune card has the alchemical symbols for water, salt, earth, mercury, air, and sulfur arranged around the wheel, with the Hebrew letters for Yahweh, God's name, inscribed on it. The game is using Kabbalistic symbolism, Hermetic alchemy, and tarot divination as its structural framework. This is not decoration. This is intentional occult architecture. The Tower card, found near Arasaka Tower, represents destruction and chaos. and it literally depicts the bombing Johnny carried out. The Devil card is obtained after V sells out to Arasaka. Judgment comes before the final choice. The World card, found on Misty's rooftop, represents the end of V's journey, the culmination of the Fool's Path. Every major plot point is mapped to tarot. Every character is an archetype. The game is teaching players to think in terms of divination, destiny, and spiritual archetypes, all outside biblical revelation. It's normalizing occult practices as wisdom, as insight, as a valid way to understand reality. And because it's presented through a sympathetic character like Misty, because it's aesthetically beautiful, because it works within the game's narrative, players absorb this framework without question. They learn that tarot is a tool for understanding the future, that divination reveals hidden truths, and that consulting spiritual forces outside God is not only acceptable, but enlightened. Again, no atheist will be offended by the presence of these pagan practices in the game. And that tells you everything you need to know about the materialist worldview that was codified for the masses by the Freemasonic Darwin family. The game's endings reveal its ultimate theological message. There are multiple endings depending on your choices, but they all share one thing in common. There is no redemption. There is no salvation. There is only rebellion, survival, or surrender. In the Devil ending, V makes a deal with Arasaka. They're promised a cure for the Relic malfunction in exchange for betraying Johnny and submitting to corporate experiments. V's consciousness is digitized, stored in Mikoshi Arasaka's soul killer database, and they're told maybe, someday, they'll get a new body. But it's a trap. V becomes corporate property, a digital prisoner, their autonomy stripped away. This is framed as the worst ending, the ultimate betrayal. In the star ending, V leaves Night City with the Aldecaldo's nomad clan, seeking a cure beyond the city. It's hopeful but uncertain. V has months to live, maybe less. They escape the corporate hellscape, but they're still dying. They chose relationships over power, authenticity over fame, but they're not saved. They're just running out the clock surrounded by people who care. In the Sun ending, V becomes a Night City legend. They pull off the ultimate heist, storming Arasaka Tower, taking what they want, becoming the mercenary they always dreamed of being. But they're still dying. Fame doesn't save them. Power doesn't heal them. They're living fast and dying young, the cyberpunk dream made real, and it's hollow. In Temperance, V lets Johnny take over their body permanently. V dies, and Johnny gets a second chance at life in V's flesh. He tries to honor V's memory, to live better than he did the first time, but he's stolen someone's life. He's a ghost wearing a corpse, and he knows it. And in the secret ending called Don't Fear the Reaper, V storms Arasaka Tower alone, refusing to risk their friends. If they succeed, they face the same choice: keep the body or let Johnny have it. If they fail, V dies in the assault, and it's game over. This is the Blaze of Glory ending, the ultimate solo run, the Luciferian defiance against impossible odds. And in case it isn't clear, the definitive reaper is Jesus, the one who reaps the harvest of righteousness, sons and daughters of God, that he purchased with his blood. The fruitless tares like Cain, the seed line of the serpent who reject the promise of restoration, they are the ones who are gathered to burn. Everyone needs a healthy fear of the reaper. Every ending is about rebellion or submission, autonomy or slavery, going out fighting or accepting defeat. But none of them offer transcendence, none of them offer forgiveness. None of them offer hope beyond the grave. You can rage against the system, you can submit to it, you can escape it temporarily, but you can't overcome it. Death wins. Entropy wins. The corporate demiurge might be wounded, but it's not defeated. This is cyberpunk nihilism. This is the genre's core message. The system is broken, rebellion is noble, but nothing really changes. You're born into a corrupt world. You fight as hard as you can, and then you die. Maybe you become a legend. Maybe you inspire others. But ultimately, the machine grinds on. And this is anti-gospel. The gospel says you're born into a fallen world, yes. That you're enslaved to sin, yes. but it also says there's a Redeemer who breaks the chains. That death has been defeated, that the corrupt system will be overthrown not by human rebellion, but by divine judgment. That there's hope beyond the grave, not through technology, not through uploading consciousness, but through the physical resurrection and glorification of the human body in Christ. Cyberpunk 2077 offers no such hope. It offers only the illusion of choice within a deterministic system. You can pick your ending, but they're all variations of the same tragedy. And the game wants you to find meaning in that tragedy, to celebrate the rebellion even when it fails, to romanticize the fight even when it's futile. This is training in learned helplessness dressed up as heroism. It's teaching you that the corrupt system is inevitable, that your only choice is how you respond to it, and that even your best efforts won't fundamentally change anything. It's defeatist propaganda disguised as rebellion. Before we get to the seduction of rebellion, we need to talk about the protagonist's name. Why is the character called V? On the surface level, V stands for Vincent or Valerie, the protagonist's birth name that's only revealed in one mission when a prostitute's AI scans their neural implant. V tells people, only those who know me real well can use my real name. They've rejected their given identity and adopted a single letter as their handle. This is the cyberpunk ethos. You choose your own identity. You define yourself. You become who you decide to be rather than who you were born as. Transgenderism, transhumanism. You know, Baphomet is a trans goat for a reason. Satan always attempts to merge together what God has clearly and purposefully divided. But V is also the Roman numeral for 5. And the number 5 has deep occult significance that runs throughout mystery religions, secret societies, and esoteric philosophy. According to Illuminati founder Adam Weishaupt, 5 represents the law of fives, the principle of chaos, change, and the breaking of established order. The pentagram, the 5-pointed star, is one of the most powerful symbols in occultism, representing man as God, the microcosm reflecting the macrocosm, the human will ascending to divine status. 5 is the number of humanity transcending its limitations. Humans have 5 fingers, 5 toes, 5 senses, 5 appendages when you include the head. The pentagram shows man with arms and legs outstretched, the Vitruvian man, the measure of all things. In occult philosophy, the pentagram right side up represents the enlightened human ascending to godhood. Inverted, it represents the descent into the demonic, but either way, it's about human will asserting dominance over divine order. V for vendetta. Another piece of media saturated in revolution symbolism uses the same letter. V for victory, V for vendetta, V for the uprising. The protagonist there was imprisoned in cell number 5 and took that number as his identity, as his symbol of rebellion against tyranny. That graphic novel by the sadly demonized Alan Moore has its entire narrative built around the 5th of November Guy Fawkes Day, when Fawkes attempted to blow up Parliament in 1605. And here in Cyberpunk 2077, you are 5. You're the 5th principle. You're the chaotic element that disrupts Night City's established order. You're the one who topples Arasaka's power structure, who determines the fate of Johnny Silverhand's engram, who chooses whether to submit to the system or rage against it. The game is built around your choices, your will, your autonomy, your self-determination. This is Luciferian philosophy encoded in a single letter. V represents the individual will asserting itself against cosmic order, the pentagram, the law of fives. The human becoming God through choice, through rebellion, through the exercise of autonomous power. But V also means victory, and there's the double meaning. Are you victorious over the system, or has the system achieved victory over you by making you believe rebellion is the only path? By the game's end, V is dying no matter which path you choose. Every ending is a variation of defeat dressed up as personal agency. The revolution fails. The individual will is crushed, but you get to choose how you lose, and that's framed as victory. This is the occult bait and switch. They give you the symbol of ascension, the V, the pentagram, the law of fives, and promise you'll transcend your limitations through willpower and rebellion. But the endings prove otherwise. V doesn't transcend. V doesn't overcome death. V doesn't become God. V either dies, becomes a corporate asset, or surrenders their body to Johnny's ghost. The V symbolizes the promise of godhood through self-determination, but the narrative delivers the reality. You're not God, you can't save yourself, and your rebellion changes nothing fundamental about the system. The letter V is the sales pitch. The endings are the fine print. And guess what? Everyone is going to learn that lesson the hard way when they come face to face with their Creator and judge Jesus of Nazareth, the Son of God, the Son of Man. Take the lesson the game is giving you now while you still can. So why does Cyberpunk 2077 work so effectively as propaganda? Because it makes rebellion feel righteous. It makes anger feel justified. It makes tearing down authority feel heroic. And here's the thing, the anger is partially justified. Corporations do exploit workers. The wealthy do rig the system. Inequality is obscene. These are real problems in our world, and Cyberpunk 2077 holds up a mirror to them, amplifies them, and then says, see, this is what unchecked capitalism looks like. This is what happens when money becomes God. The critique is valid. The problem is the solution. Because the game offers only two paths: submit to the system or rage against it. Work for the core or become a criminal. Be a slave or be a rebel. There is no third option. There is no build something better. There is no submit to God's authority while resisting corrupt human authority by proclaiming the gospel. There is no gospel. But here's what's really happening with stories like this. They're telling us the truth about where we're headed into a technocracy, into a system of total corporate and technological control, and then they're radicalizing us with ideas of uprisings and rebellions. They show you the dystopia, make you angry about it, and then channel that anger into revolutionary violence as the only solution. Obviously, not everyone who plays Cyberpunk 2077 is going to pick up a gun and storm a corporate tower. But the ideas are being planted, the framework is being established. And throughout history, when you radicalize enough people with revolutionary ideology, uprisings happen, and they rarely end without significant bloodshed. The French Revolution, the Bolshevik Revolution, the Cultural Revolution in China. Every time humans try to tear down the existing order through violence, the result is mass death, tyranny, and eventually a system worse than what came before. Christ, by contrast, teaches Christians something radically different. He tells us to go into prison if we have to die by the sword if we have to submit to unjust punishment, to turn the other cheek, to overcome evil with good, knowing that God will establish justice in due time. This isn't weakness. This is the power of our witness. When Stephen was stoned, he prayed for his murderers. When the early Christians were fed to lions, they sang hymns. Their blood became the seed of the church because they didn't fight back with swords. They testified to a kingdom not of this world, but one coming to crush the corrupt kingdoms of this world. That's offensive, and it's why they killed Christ when he told them he is the Son of Man ascending on the clouds to rule and judge the nations beside the Ancient of Days. Because the gospel has always been from Genesis 3 onward, to hope in the Christ who restores the temple garden of Eden and the priesthood Adam and Eve operated in. This is biblical faith, not merely that God exists as the theologically ignorant insist, but that he will restore what was willfully given away to Satan. But Cyberpunk 2077 teaches you to fight it out for control of this system, to choose the path of Cain to make your home in this world with no hope of restoration and fight the other Cains of the world for supremacy. This is what transhumanism offers, a digital resurrection without God so that man and the gods through him might continue to rule this fallen, decaying age. The gospel doesn't promise you'll overthrow the corrupt system through rebellion. It promises the corrupt system will be overthrown by God himself when Christ returns. Your job isn't to burn it down. Your job is to be faithful within it. to endure suffering without retaliation, and to trust that God is sovereign over history. Cyberpunk 2077 offers no such hope. It teaches no such patience. It says the system is corrupt, you're trapped in it, and the only honorable response is to fight back with everything you've got, even if it kills you, even if it changes nothing, even if it makes you a monster in the process. This is the Luciferian trap. Satan doesn't deny that the world is broken, he just offers rebellion as a legitimate response. He doesn't deny that authority can be corrupt, he just says all authority is corrupt, including God's. He doesn't deny that the world can be a better place. He just says you have to take it by force, that might makes right, that the ends justify the means. Cyberpunk 2077 trains you to think this way. Every corporate NPC is soulless, exploitative, and cruel. Every authority figure is corrupt or incompetent. The police are brutal. The government is a puppet. Even the good characters are morally grey. Everyone's got blood on their hands. Everyone's compromised. The only uncompromised people are the rebels, the ones outside the system entirely. This is anarchist propaganda. It's teaching you to distrust all structures, to see hierarchy itself as oppressive, to view rebellion as the only moral stance. And it's incredibly seductive because there's a grain of truth in it. Structures can be corrupted, authority can be abused, but the solution isn't the Hermetic principle of solve et co, ag ulla, to tear everything down. It's to build rightly ordered structures under God's authority. The game never presents that option. It never suggests that maybe the problem isn't authority itself, but fallen authority, and that the solution isn't rebellion, but righteous authority. It never points you toward the King who rules with justice, the Father who disciplines in love, the God who promises to set all things right. Instead, it points you toward Johnny Silverhand, the beautiful rebel, the Luciferian archetype, the one who says, I will not serve, and it makes him the hero. Cyberpunk 2077 offers you chrome and neon and rebellion and rage. The gospel offers you righteousness, peace, and the hope of glory. One ends in a blaze that changes nothing. The other ends in resurrection that changes everything. Pay attention to what you're absorbing. Recognize the propaganda for what it is. Because the dystopian future isn't just a setting for games, it's a vision being sold to the generation that will have to face it. This was the Frank Fox being frank about how popular culture, Hollywood, and the entertainment industry invert the truth of Scripture to lead people away from Jesus Christ. If you like this content, please subscribe, click like, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss future uploads. And may God bless you in the knowledge of His Son, Jesus Christ.